Hello, my name's Stuart. In this video, we're going to go through the process of using Patronum to simplify and automate your onboarding process. Now, what do we mean by onboarding? Well, I'm sure you're all familiar with when a new user joins your organization, they need to be given access to a variety of resources, whether that's groups or contacts or put into the appropriate chat spaces and so on. So we'll do all of that. But I just want you to also bear in mind that this could also apply to when people change role or they move within your organization. If somebody was in one team and now they're moved into a different team, that probably means that they need access to a whole bunch of different resources. So you can use this same technique to provision all of those resources to them when they move. So it's not just about new people coming along. So having said that, let's share my screen and we'll have a look at Patronum and what it can do for us. So you may have seen some of my previous videos or some of the other videos we've got out there for Patronum. You'll understand that it is a tool to help you administer your workspace environment and to simplify a lot of that, to avoid having to dive into the excuse me, to the admin console. So I've landed here in the people view, and you can see I've got access to edit the details of all of the people in my organization. I can go in here and I can manipulate their profile information. I can change their email signatures. I can do the group memberships and all that kind of good stuff. But I'm doing this on a piecemeal basis, doing it for each user one at a time. And the real power of Patronum comes from policies. So I'm going to jump into the policies section here, and we'll see that I've got a whole bunch of policies that do all kinds of different things. The one I'm interested in at the moment is my onboarding policy for marketing. It's one I created earlier. So what this one will do is it will find anybody that's in the marketing team and provision various resources to them. So the first tab we see in this policy is the workflow tab. And I can decide here what's the scope of the people I'm going to have this policy impact. Initially, this is set to all users within my domain. I could narrow that down and make it apply only to a specific org unit, or I could exclude a specific org unit. And similarly for groups, I could include groups or exclude groups. So I've got flexibility on how broad my policy gets. What I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it on all people in the entire domain here, and I'm going to go down to the next section, which is the conditions. And rather than narrow it down by org unit, I'm going to look for people who've got the word marketing in their department name inside of their profile. So what that means is it doesn't matter to me where somebody sits in the organizational hierarchy in the OU structure. So long as their department name says marketing, this policy will apply to them. I'll drop this list down so you can see a bunch of the other attributes that we've got here. We've got basically everything that's visible in a user's profile, including some other attributes about the state of that user account, such as when it last signed in, what type of license it's got, and so on. So we can really create tailored policies to suit exactly what we want to happen. License type, for example, I might have one policy that sets things up for a full workspace user, and it sets things up in a slightly different way for maybe somebody who's got a frontline license type. So that's what that's all about. We've defined our scope. And what we can do here is we can use this preview link to have a quick look to see exactly which users this policy is going to impact. So here we see the 4 users. These are obviously the ones who've got marketing in their department name. And just to prove how that works, if I change the spelling of this or remove some letters and now do a preview, it's not going to match any of the users in my organization. So this should come back blank. There we go. So I'll just put that back so we make sure we get those users in scope. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run through the tabs and look at the changes that we can make to these users as we go along. So in the profile tab, this is where I can adjust information that's written into the user's profile. And this is information that will show up in the user directory and be visible through the contacts application. So here I've decided that everybody in the marketing department should have a cost center of 1003 in this case. I know that they're all based in the building ID of head office. and they all hang out on the 4th floor. So I'm going to write all of that information into their profile so that they don't have to do it themselves and nobody else has to do it manually. Automatically now, when this policy runs, anybody that's in the marketing team or anybody that's got marketing in their department name will get this information written into their profile automatically. For the groups, I want to ensure that these folks are all in the marketing team group or the marketing department group so that they'll receive any email. This group is also going to be used to grant access to other resources like maybe Drive content and so on. So we're making sure that anybody in the marketing department automatically gets added into this group. Well, how did I do that? Well, I just clicked on the blue icon up here, typed in the name of the group or the email address of the group that I'm interested in, and decide whether I want them to be a member, or a manager, or an owner of the group in question. And that's that. So I can do more than one here. If there's a whole bunch of groups that they should be a member of, I can add them all into this list. Similarly for calendar, if there's particular calendars that somebody's managing that it would be useful for this team to have access to, or this cohort of users to have access to, this is where I do it. Now, I happen to have created in my account, I've created a calendar called Marketing Events, and I'm sharing it through this process from my account into, well, the 4 people that the scope of this policy touches. So that's a nice, easy way to make sure that they've all automatically got access to the calendars that they need. Same goes for contacts. It may be that one person in the team maintains a list of contacts, in this case, a whole bunch of approved suppliers. They create the contacts in their own contacts app, label them with approved supplier, and then that label full of contacts can be shared out to the rest of the cohort here using this mechanism. And that means they only have to be maintained in one place. Now we have got the option here to share files out to this cohort. I can choose files that are stored in any user's My Drive, or alternatively files that are available in a shared drive context. I'm going to caution you a little bit here. Although it's possible to do that, my preferred method would be to share access to files and resources like that through a group membership. Okay, so we've already added people into the appropriate group through the earlier tab. And what I would do is I'd have a folder or a shared drive itself, and I would add the group having access to that resource. That just makes managing the ACLs, the access control lists for those resources, easier in the long run. If I were to do it for individual files in this way, it's perfectly doable. It does have the advantage that those files will appear in the Shared With Me view for the users we're talking about. But it also means that every file is going to have a whole list of people that it's shared with, and that can become a little bit cumbersome. So it might be right for you in your context. In some larger organizations, it's preferable to do it via group membership. In the signature section, this is where I can define the email signature that gets applied to this cohort of users. I'm not going to dive into a lot of detail here because we've done plenty of videos on creating email signatures in the past. So if that is of interest to you, go and seek out one of those other videos, and we go into quite a lot of in-depth onto exactly how to structure these signatures, the codes that you need to make them conditional, so that you can have one email signature that satisfies a whole bunch of different requirements. Suffice it to say, if you've got a predefined email template, email signature template, you can just pop into the source code here, paste in your HTML source code, and you'll be good to go. In the settings tab, there may be things in here that we want to set up for users within this group. It might be, for example, I want to make sure that delegate access is set up so that we have maybe we have a team administrator that can manage all of our emails for us, so we can set up the delegate access that way. There might be specific security requirements that we have for members of this team, so I can ensure that their account security is applied in that way. Most of the settings I would say in here are going to be things that you would want to apply right across your organization. There will be some specific cases where you're creating an onboarding policy for a specific team, and you need to make some minor changes to your default position, and that's what you could do here. At the backup tab, this is we partner with a product called AFI.ai. It's a workspace backup product, backs up your mail, calendar, drive, and so on. And what it could be in this scenario, maybe the people in our marketing team, it's essential for us to back up all of their work products in Google Drive. Maybe they're working on marketing campaigns and they've got lots of imagery and graphics and so on. And we want to make sure that's all backed up in case of some kind of disaster with Google Drive. Well, here is where I could set my SLA, or the level of backup that I want for that. Bear in mind, AFI Backup is a separate product from Google Workspace. It requires a separate license. We just tightly integrate with it here, so you can surface those backup regimes in Patronum and make use of them in these policies. And lastly, in here are our chat spaces. So you can see here I've got a marketing team chat that has been shared. So the users that this policy touches will automatically be dropped into that team chat space as a member. And that has the distinct advantage of making sure it's there for them and it's visible to them. One of the big headaches when you join a new organization or a new team is that you're not really sure what chat spaces you should have access to, where you should be discussing things. It's not always visible. You sometimes have to just go searching for your chat spaces, maybe request access to them and so on. And I've seen it happen plenty of times where somebody's created a new chat space to talk about a topic, and only to find there were already at least one or maybe more chat spaces already in existence for exactly that topic. So by doing it this way, you ensure that the right people are assigned to the right chat spaces at the right time, and it happens automatically. Okay, so once you've defined all of the actions that you want to take place for that policy, you would save and activate it, and that would kick it off straight away. And it's going to then continuously run on a schedule basis and check if any of these things change. So if somebody happens to drop out of the group, for example, or they delete the calendar that you've shared with them, well, when the policy next executes, it's going to put that back for them. So what we're doing here is we're maintaining a true condition of how we want the resources to be provisioned to this cohort of users. And if anything changes, we will change it back again so that we maintain this consistency right across the team. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a good insight into how we can use Patronum to automate and simplify the process of ensuring the right people have access to things when they need it. If you think day to day, how many calls, if you're in a kind of IT support position, how many calls you get when somebody is changing role, they're joining your organization, and they weren't provisioned with the right things on day one. Well, taking this kind of approach can make that a headache that you don't have to suffer anymore. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. These are sort of bite-sized bits of sort of how-to videos that we're doing from time to time. If you do have any suggestions for any other topics that you would like us to cover, then please do reach out to us using the chat and any other mechanisms, and we'll be happy to take those on board. Thanks.